Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is No Fate and welcome to the Gunsmith Master series. Now this is the first in the series and I'm super excited to bring it to you all. This series is aimed at making every possible variant of every gun in Modern Warfare. So I will be taking a look at real world weapons and then building them in the Gunsmith. One disclaimer is that I am not a weapons expert, I'm not in the military or anything like that, but I have done extensive research into all of the weapons that I'm going to be making. So without any further ado, let's jump into the AUG. Now this variant that we see here, this kind of iconic image of the AUG assault rifle, is actually not technically an AUG. This is actually an STG-77. So the Austrian army in 1978 actually adopted the typical AUG model, which has a shorter barrel, and they made some other changes, but I guess the biggest one was that they actually lengthened the barrel to make it more of a out-and-out assault rifle. Not that the AUG A1-A3 SF, which I'm going to get into in a second, is not an assault rifle, but I mean just this iconic longer barrel just makes it look even more beastier. So how do we make this? So the AUG isn't actually an assault rifle yet, it's actually an SMG. For all of you that didn't know, it's the very first SMG that you get. I've leveled mine up to level 56. Oh, another disclaimer by the way, that most of the weapons, or some of the weapons that I will be breaking down and making variants of, I will be doing it in private match because obviously I don't have everything unlocked for every gun in the game yet. As you guys might know, that takes quite a lot of grinding. And yeah, simply don't have the time to do that quite yet. So I will be building them in private match. But this one I've actually done live in actual gameplay, online, multiplayer, world kind of stuff. So what we do is take the AUG SMG and go into Gunsmith. Now with this blank canvas, we are going to make the actual typical AUG, which is the AUG variants from AUG A1, A2, A3 and A3 SF. Now the difference between an AUG A1 to A3 SF is very minimal. So essentially what they did, and I'll do this as we go because we're going to build it, is if the first thing you're going to add to make this into an AUG is this integral 3.0 times OPTIC. Right, as you can see, as soon as you add it, you start to get that typical iconic AUG look. Okay, so essentially the difference between the A1 to A3 SF is just slight changes with the sights and scopes that they put on it, and also this top-mounted rail. The actual top-mounted rail technically sat just under here, and then scopes were added to the top, but this variant in-game has it on top of the sight. The next thing we want to do to turn it into an AUG A1 to A3 SF is use one of the 407mm barrels. Now, in terms of actual gameplay stats, I don't know why you would actually use the lightweight one, because if you can see the subtle changes in the very descriptive, I'm being sarcastic, bars that we get, it actually shows it does. This lightweight one does nothing else but make it worse. So there's probably some hidden stats that this graph doesn't show you to what it changes. I actually just prefer to use the extended barrel, which is technically what they would have used to make the AUG variants. The next thing, kind of the last thing that we have to add to make this into a typical AUG assault rifle is the ammunition type. So as standard, it uses 9mm parabellum rounds in its SMG kind of form, or its native form, but to turn it into an assault rifle we just use the 5.56 NATO rounds. You don't really want to go for the 60 round drum, that's when we start to build LMGs, so let's go ahead and use the 30 round mags. And there you pretty much have it, guys. So we have 2 attachment slots left to use, and what I actually like to use is the muzzle brake. So what the muzzle brake does is that it redirects the gases outwards, left and right, so it actually stabilizes your recoil under like sustained fire, so it doesn't move left and right that much. It just keeps the recoil quite linear, up and down, which is what you want. So if you're going for body shots, the natural recoil will push the gun towards the head, which is really, really good. And again, you guys can make different variants of this, but the kind of barrel, optic and ammunition is what you need to make this into the typical AUG assault rifle. Now the last one that I like to do is actually just upgrade this foregrip that you have on the AUG, and this is the actual folding foregrip is what they would have actually used. But you can actually change the stock if you want to. I know some people like to do that, but I personally like to add the Ranger foregrip for the recoil control and aiming stability. It just makes it into such a solid assault rifle if you've got the recoil control on point and the aiming stability on point. So the only negative really here is the aim walking movement speed, which if you're not really using this as like an SMG kind of close to mid-range gun, that's not too bad, even though I can't stress how important aim walking actually is, and just your typical aim down sight speed, which is cool because once again we're trying to use this as more of a slower paced, not a run and gun SMG. So with all those equipped, that is a really good standard A1 to A3 SF. Now to make the STG-77, what we need to do is go and extend the barrel to the 6.22mm long barrel. And as you can see, this really makes it look like that typical AUG image that we know and love. And this is actually what I prefer to use in the game. Now I have some gameplay footage coming up right now, which is live in Ground War and in Domination, and we can really see how this gun performs. So, the AUG Assault Rifle. Long story short, I really like it. I mean, there's certain situations, but essentially, the upgrade in the 5.56 ammo turns this gun into some kind of beast. The difference between this and the 9mm is massive, and that should be apparent because obviously you're upgrading the ammunition type. But I mean, as you can see in some of these examples, the time to kill there was super quick. And it is decent at like mid to long ranges. At long ranges, you do kind of really feel it, but you are taking an SMG technically from the game and trying to make it into a long range gun. The ammo count at 30 is really good, it feels fine. I mean, with the upgrade in power to the 5.56 rounds and its amazing fire rate, it feels more than enough. And the fire rate is something that I want to talk about because this actually fires quicker than the standard M13, making it one of the fastest firing assault rifles in Modern Warfare. But with that said, overall I really like it, so let's talk about the recoil patterns.
Objective complete. Very good.
Here you can see what I'm talking about when I use the muzzle brake and the attachments that I put on it. Look at that recoil patterns. This is me literally just holding down fire. It is super linear, no left to right movement whatsoever. And then the next bit is me just very slightly pulling down on the mouse, or for you it would be your controller, and you can see that the recoil is super manageable. Now I've pulled together a few clips from Ground War on Krovnik Farmland, new Ground War map, just to show a few different scenarios, ranges. I mean, my aim was shocking there, but it managed to give me a little bit of comeback with a headshot, a little right to left tracking shot there with a drop shot. So you can be quite nimble with it. It's still an SMG at heart, but this recoil pattern. I mean, guys, you can see the recoil pattern we just did on Grasna Raid. Just put the crosshairs on their body and just let the recoil take it up and then start to manage it. I mean, this gun is beautiful. It still behaves like an SMG, and this clip that's coming up in a second shows that off, but it really does work at mid ranges. Super long ranges, you're going to struggle. Obviously, it's an SMG to AR, but I mean, this, for example, that guy was low, but this dude, drop shot hip fire, and it was from the chest down. This gun is super fun. Try it out. I'm just going to take a small pause in the video to ask you guys if you would kindly leave a like if you're enjoying the video. It really does help out a lot and it makes a big difference. And also subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of content and want to see more. That's it. I'll leave a couple of seconds for you to do that. Thanks very much. So moving on, let's tackle the SMG variants of the AUG. Now, this AUG is called the AUG Para, and is a variant that uses the same 3x optic, but is more of an SMG build. And you'll see this quite commonly used by armed forces around the world. I think it's mainly in Switzerland and places like that they still actually use this gun. I couldn't be too sure. But anyway, so this is actually how you build the AUG Para. And these are the bits that go into it. So I put on the flash guard. It uses the 407mm barrel. I threw on the lightweight because, as I said earlier in the video, I don't actually know why, and it makes more sense to use a lightweight barrel if we want to be more nimble and running around. So you can choose between any of these two. Going back, again, The AUG Para actually uses the 3x sight we put on a stock. So the Forged Tac CQB come, which actually gives us more aim down sight speed, but less aiming stability. So this SMG build, what we're going for is more of a, you run and gun. It's a bit even more nimble. We're not trying to use it at longer ranges. It's all about close range kind of interactions. And what I would say about this gun is that the hip fire is crazy. It's really, really good. So you don't really need lasers. And I threw on the rear stipple grip tape on the rear grip. There's not actually too much you need to do to this gun to make it into the AUG Para. I actually tried this out and I've got some footage of me using it. I didn't personally like it, but I can show you in more detail. So the positives for this official AUG Para variant is the sprint out time and ADS time is really, really good. Mobility is really good. Like, as you can see, that ADS time is crazy. I don't know why you'd want it any faster than that. Now, hip fire, super good. I said this gun, no matter what you do to it, the hip fire is really, really good. So you do not need to buff that at all. That's like 3 or 4 bullets. Up close, this gun's really good. Mid to long ranges, this is a good example of long range. Right there. This one is a bad example. I felt that this guy should be dead. That's too many bullets. That took me down to 10 rounds. Upper body to head like that, you're going to do fine. Anything else, you're not. Like this, I had 13 bullets. I felt I should have killed that guy. This example, look. Every bullet hit apart from one, I think. And it took me down to 14 bullets. I don't know how I killed this guy. If I'm being completely self-critical, my aim wasn't amazing, but it didn't help that he was completely brown against the background and the 3x scope zooms in too much. But look at this hip fire. That's crazy. That's where this gun shines. And I think what my problem is with this build is that the 3x scope is pretty much unnecessary, because it really is good at close range engagements when you use 9mm rounds and all the other stuff. But like just the 3x scope, it just doesn't really do anything. I mean, you've built an SMG and the 3x scope doesn't work. So this is unfortunately an example where real life doesn't really translate well into the game. So with all that in mind, what I'd simply say is just take off or change the optic. I mean, I would just go for the GI Mini Reflex. It's probably one of my favorite scopes, sights, whatever you want to call it, in the game. I mean, as I said, this AUG Para build is so simple. It's simply just the barrel, and that's pretty much it. And the stock, if you really want to go there. But for the AUG Para, I mean, it's completely up to you. Just kind of play around with it. As again, I would kind of say that the hip fire on this is crazy good anyway. So don't worry about kind of buffing the hip fire with things like the 5mm laser. If I was to do anything or change anything on here, I mean, you could probably sacrifice a little bit of ADS speed into something else that goes into control, like maybe a foregrip, like this one, the Commando foregrip, for example. I would take off the rear grip because the ADS time is super quick anyway, so I don't think you really need it. We can also make the AUG Para XS extra small variant, which basically all we do is take off the barrel, so it has no extension whatsoever. And so this is the 325mm barrel that the XS variant has. So similar spec, just remove the barrel, and then you can probably just throw in a Commando foregrip just to actually help out your recoil and stabilization stats in game. And finally, the last variant of the AUG that we're going to make is the AUG Hbar. So the Hbar stands for Heavy Barreled Automatic Rifle. So essentially this is just a longer barreled, heavier version of the AUG, which is designed to be kind of like a light support / designated marksman rifle weapon. And basically how you make an Hbar is by adding a 4x sight. But the only thing that we have in Modern Warfare at the moment is this 4x flip hybrid. So you've got the 4x scope and also a hollow scope that you can flip up and down to. Other than that, that's pretty much it to make the Hbar, other than having a 60 round drum, which is kind of like, if you want to throw it on, if you're using a light support weapon, I would probably suggest having this just for kind of like crowd control, holding down areas. I did try to get some footage of me using this, but I really didn't enjoy it. Not that it's a bad gun or a bad setup.
It just doesn't suit my playstyle. It is more of a, if you just want to sit still, hold down an area. If that's your kind of thing, I know a lot of people like to play like that. So yeah, maybe try that out if you guys like that kind of playstyle. But as I say, it just wasn't for me.
And with all that being said and done, that is the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, don't forget to leave a like if you found it enjoyable and helpful. And please subscribe for more exciting, amazing Modern Warfare content just like this, especially from the Gunsmith Master series.